Hi, everybody. So,
Yep.
joined my daughter, Chana, the head of Kosher Sex, Rabbi Shmuley, the author of Kosher Sex. And we try to respond to people's questions on relationships. And one of the things that people were writing and asking, given my theories about kosher sex, the ingredients of an erotic kosher life in the life of a married couple, one of those ingredients is mysteriousness and hiddenness. So we decided to talk about something that I'm passionate about, which is, how modesty actually leads to greater erotic attraction. And that includes things like lingerie being much more attractive than naked flesh. But before I get into that, let me just say, Chana, you started the whole kosher sex company, and it's been an incredible success, thank God. And you've become, something of a celebrity around the world. Your own father asks you for your autograph. When you started kosher sex, I told you that one of the things you could do is start a kosher sex lingerie line, because let me just explain the theory behind it, right? Naked flesh, when overexposed, becomes unattractive. So for example, a nudist colony, a naturalist colony, there's nothing erotic about it. It becomes very boring. So Judaism is insistent that we limit exposure of the naked body so as to preserve the body's magnetism. That's what modesty is. That's what tznius is. That's why we have this whole concept of tznius. Tznius is a critical concept in preserving modesty. Now, but what about when a man and a woman, husband and wife, are in an intimate setting? Well, even then, contrary to the popular opinion, which is born of anti-Semitism, I think, that Jews make love through a sheet with a hole in the middle. I joke about that in kosher sex, that that's only for Reform Jews. We Orthodox Jews have sex in two separate bedrooms through a hole in the wall. Ha ha ha. People usually laugh in an audience at that. But while physical intimacy has to be flesh pressed against flesh, as the halacha says, as Jewish law says, in terms of attraction, lingerie is much more attractive than the naked body because it still preserves that element of hiddenness. So what is kosher lingerie? So I'm thinking kosher lingerie, if we were ever to launch a kosher lingerie line, kosher sex lingerie would be about hidden it's like hidden revelation. It's kind of like lingerie that manifests the body while hiding it at the same time. So you might say, well, that's an impossibility. How do you reveal the body with lingerie and conceal it at the same time? Well, that's a challenge, I know. But think about it. That's what the whole Kabbalistic idea is of or hagonos, of the hidden light. How could a light be hidden? How could a light be hidden? When we speak about in Kabbalah about or hagonos, a hidden light, light is either light reveals itself or it doesn't reveal itself. Like right now, Chana, you just went dark on me, quite literally. I don't know why.
Yeah, because something is wrong with the Wi-Fi. I just can't get Wi-Fi. It's something's wrong. Okay,
well, are you using your phone or a laptop? Okay. Okay, I can barely see you. I can't see you. No one else can see you either. But do you understand what I'm saying about the mystical idea of or hagonos, of a hidden light? So the body is supposed to be manifest. That's in an erotic situation between husband and wife, and yet modesty and concealment is actually much more erotic than revelation. So I've pushed you as part of your kosher sex company to create kosher sex lingerie. How would you envision? First of all, react to what I just said and tell me how you would envision kosher lingerie. What would be kosher lingerie in a marriage? Okay, I can't hear you at all.
Can you hear me?
No, I cannot. And now I can, yeah.
Well, I don't really want to get into the kosher lingerie because if I ever do come out with it, I don't want anyone stealing my idea. So I'm not putting it out there right now. But I will say that
copyright the idea right here on Facebook. You can make sure that all the people watching give us. They can all sign NDAs. Everyone watching can sign a non-disclosure.
But I think the idea of lingerie is really interesting because, undergarments or lingerie was initially, it's not underwear. It's specifically for the purpose. It's an erotic tool. So it's not for comfort. Lingerie generally is there for an erotic purpose. And a lot of people think that that's a little bit anti-feminist and that's catering to men. But I think the interesting thing about lingerie is that it doesn't only, it helps form the body. It keeps things a little bit hidden. It's a little bit mysterious. But it also, for women, I think it can be empowering because it changes the way that they act, and it can create a different, like an erotic feeling in a woman's head. So like
you mean if women feel more erotic, more attractive, more beautiful, you're
yes,
saying that much
yeah.
more than nakedness, correct? Right?
Yes, and nakedness also, as much as it's beautiful and you want to get to that point of intimacy, it is still very vulnerable. So I think that lingerie in the beginning is like a stepping stone to getting to where you want to go, but it brings some of that excitement. It's almost like unwrapping the gift. And I think it gets women, especially, I think women maybe have a harder time expressing their more erotic side, or tapping into it as much, because of whatever the reason is. But I think that that can help them get into like a setting in their head of, like let's say someone's married or they're a mother and they go from, putting the kids to sleep. Lingerie can kind of put them in that mode where they feel sexy and they get into like that mood.
Okay, so there's two concepts here. Before we, again, kosher sex is a very deep approach to human sexuality. It's a very intimate approach to human sexuality. So we've said two things. The first is that too much revelation is actually off-putting. It demagnetizes the body. Hence, lingerie, with its act of concealment, can actually enhance attraction and enhance eroticism. Number one. Number two, you said about unwrapping the gift. Erotic obstacles are another way of enhancing erotic attraction. In other words, something which is too available is never attractive. It's, what I always say in my books, Chana, that fast food is never that tasty because it's too available. It's specifically the gourmet meal that you have at an expensive restaurant where things are really kind of dragged out almost intentionally with an expensive bottle of wine, etc., which gives you the opportunity to savor the meal. And the same thing is true with human intimacy, with sexuality. If there aren't some erotic obstacles, believe it or not, when things are too available, they're actually less attractive. So lingerie, therefore, could be very kosher. And it's part of this whole concept of modesty. But what I'm asking is, when you and I were talking about what kosher sex lingerie would be, what kosher lingerie would be, as I said, it's kind of revelatory amidst preserving some level of modesty. So what is that? Serious question. Like, how do you have revelation of the body and hiddenness of the body at the same time? It's a middle step between total modesty, which is what Judaism advocates for both men and women, which enhances erotic attraction for all the reasons I just said. Also, modesty invites the body to be part of fantasy. And the absence of modesty, there's no room for fantasy. So it's the perfect middle ground between total revelation and total hiddenness, hence, lingerie. Any thoughts?
It's lingerie is basically accomplishes that, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I don't know. But I actually read a really interesting article about this woman who, she said she was never the lingerie type and she thought that it was stupid. She always felt a little ridiculous putting on lingerie. But she did this lingerie challenge where she wore lingerie for 7 days in a row for a week straight to see if it would change her sex life with her husband. And she said that the results were amazing. So I think maybe people who are watching this maybe want to try the lingerie challenge and see what happens. Because I think it's really something like it can really change like the mode in your head of dressing up, not for just for someone else, but for yourself, and getting into that mode and just making the ordinary a little extraordinary. I mean, lingerie like dates back thousands of years, and I think it was like initially there to like form a woman's body and make it look nicer, but it definitely has a purpose, and I think it can really spice things up.
Well,
obviously, that's why people wear it.
Well,
but I think it can be really effective.
I'm not a woman, even though you know that your father is deeply in touch with his feminine side, right? I'm not a woman. To help men like me understand, well, so make sure I'm recording this part. for our blog. Help men like me understand, why would any woman have an issue with lingerie? You just said that women have to undertake a lingerie challenge. Why would anyone feel uncomfortable with lingerie? Because they feel that they don't fill it out sufficiently, that they're not going to look nice, that they're going to look pretentious, that they're going to put on lingerie and still be rejected by the man they're with, so they feel it could almost invite rejection. Why would someone feel uncomfortable?
No, I think it definitely feels a little bit pretentious. A lot of women have expressed that they feel a little ridiculous wearing like the whole getup, that it's trying too hard, that it's catering to the man. Yeah, all those things. But it's also like really going out on a limb. You know, if a woman puts on lingerie and puts on the whole getup, you're really putting yourself out there, you know, to seduce and to feel sexy. And maybe the fear of rejection of that can be really daunting. But
well, the Jewish law says, halacha says that a husband should never put his wife in the position of having to ever kind of request sex or intimacy, that it kind of is contrary to a woman's more intimate nature. Okay, and we can debate whether modern women feel that to be true or not. But if a wife puts on lingerie, then normally she is sending a subtle message that she's in the mood for an intimate moment, right? And the fear can be that, oh, I put all this on and I put on makeup and I put on lingerie and my husband won't even touch me, or is just staring at the TV, or kind of looks at me like I look ridiculous. You think that women go through that, and it could be
for sure, that's very
potential humiliation?
Yeah, that's very painful. Putting, like, women, even if you're in a committed relationship, putting yourself out there there's still a certain fear in that. And wearing lingerie is definitely, it's not even a subtle message. It's basically, you're putting it out there. And to go through all that, not even trouble, but to go and put that on and put yourself out there like that is very clear about what you want, and to get rejected when you, especially in that state, is probably very painful.
Well, lingerie seems to speak to a certain femininity which society has not yet fully rejected. In other words, gender roles are being rejected by modern society, and we're kind of approaching a gender neutralization effort where we're not allowed to talk really about difference between men and women, and yet lace for women has remained something exclusive for women. And what is lace? It's very brittle. It's actually, there's a vulnerability to it. It's like a fabric which is very, very soft, and it can fall apart, and it does speak to a certain femininity. Men don't wear lace, obviously, and it's one of the last things where women can kind of project a certain femininity. There is a deep femininity to it that I think transcends the current rejection of gender difference. And maybe women, therefore, maybe it brings out a certain femininity in women, and maybe it brings out a certain vulnerability in women.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Or I think that a key element to women's sexuality is them tapping into that erotic part of themselves and being able to express it. So when they feel sexy, it's much easier for them to express it when they really feel it. And lingerie makes a lot of women feel very sexy. Even the way that it's built, it accentuates certain parts of the body, and it definitely makes them feel super feminine. So when they feel sexy, they're much more confident and much more able to engage in that. So yeah, lingerie is, it's like a huge, Victoria's Secret's suffering right now. Is it still suffering? But lingerie is like it's like an empire.
Well, let me tell you. See, that's an interesting example of what I consider to be non-kosher lingerie. What Victoria's Secret did was it took lingerie in order to sexualize women. It did it without any modesty. It did it without any exclusivity. It took billboards in high street stores, smack in the middle of neighborhoods, and it showed these supermodels, and they were all supermodels. Women who are airbrushed 1,000 times before the picture goes up. And it made women, it kind of made these women objects of envy, but it also made the average woman the average wife feel inadequate, that she was never going to look that way, even with Victoria's Secret's products. It also kind of manipulated lingerie into something that is there just to kind of sell stuff. I'm speaking about lingerie that really is reserved for intimacy, to create kosher eroticism and kosher intimacy, and not so lingerie that is not used to abrogate modesty, but is used to enhance eroticism within the context of an intimate, modest relationship. Like I said, lingerie is kind of a fascinating halfway point between total nakedness and full modesty. But when it's used for pure revelation, I think it really undermines the message. I was never impressed with the way Victoria's Secret exploited women in that way. And you know, Hannah, you know that I've said for
That's what they're suffering. People got sick of it.
Why? Why did they get sick of it?
Because, I mean, for everything you said, Victoria's Secret, I don't think was about making all women feel, tap into that erotic side of themselves. It was about using, rail thin young women to sell a brand and to make money. And people got sick of they want something authentic. And now, like, if you, on Instagram, you'll see there's hundreds of new lingerie, and a lot of them are more geared towards comfort now, because I think they're going to another extreme. But yeah, there has to be something in the middle where it's very, very erotic, but not objectifying or exploitative. But I think that lingerie sometimes to objectify can be good in a relationship and make the body, really sexy, and lingerie does help accomplish that.
Yeah, no, there is room for objectification of the body within marriage. There is room for a husband to see his wife as a beautiful sex object, and for a wife to see a husband as a sex object. It's where they are only treated as sex objects, or where it's exploitative, that it's actually damaging. But there's definitely room for someone to be the object of lust, and there should be more lust in marriage, and lingerie can help achieve greater lust and desire. And you know that I'm all about believing that in kosher lust and kosher desire in relationships. Where it is exploitative, however, I knew there was going to be a backlash against Victoria's Secret. I knew that this couldn't last, not only because so much nudity, etc., was going to provoke a certain blandness and a certain boredom, but also because women were beginning to feel, you know what, I don't look like that, and no one looks like that, and this is not me. But you're right. Then we go to the opposite extreme. Okay, well, then let's make lingerie only about cotton and very comfortable, et cetera, et cetera. And no doubt, sometimes lingerie. I'm wondering if kosher lingerie has to be uncomfortable specifically, or what material has to be made of, as this slowly comes.
Well, then also lingerie.
Sorry. What are you going to say?
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit. But no, I was saying in the 60s, like, lingerie it can also be seen as very constricting. The women's liberation movement saw lingerie as like an article of constriction. Where there, even
You're
the way
putting it on for a man. You're not doing it for yourself.
But the way that lingerie started, back in the day with corsets, that was all about forming a woman's body to be. That's how it began.
Hourglass, and like breaking her rib, she's suffocating, and
have a tiny waist and to have like a bigger chest, and that it was literally physically constricting. But I do think that lingerie is also good for the psyche, for the mental, for the woman's mind, to separate herself from like the whole day and to get into something new and feel sexy, and like a separation from just the ordinary day, and then you slip into something different and you kind of change your mindset.
Well, that's a great point. These are all great points. Now we're beginning to establish what kosher lingerie is. I like what you said, that it's good for women to slip into a different modality, because one of the things that kills sex in marriage is the practical nature of marriage. You have kids to look after, you got dishes to clean, you got the husband and wife, you have all this housework, husband and wife, and you're tired. So for a woman to slip into a different modality, I think that's important. So you might say, what about the guy? Why doesn't he put on kind of lingerie? Well, I think men are able to slip into a different modality mentally a lot easier for some reason. They find it easier to compartmentalize between these different modalities. And also, when we get into these generalizations about men being much more visual, that men need kind of eye candy more than women, You think that's true? Because women seem to be getting into like cute guys now. They like, women seem to be as focused as on physical attraction in men as men have been for generations among women. Is that true? Or were women always like that? We were just fooling ourselves. Did you just move somewhere else? I.e., there is no lingerie for men, right? It would be a kind of, it's almost a joke to talk about lingerie for men. Chana, I'm losing you. Okay, for those of you, until Chana rejoins me, for those of you that are just joining, and we're going to soon wrap this conversation up. Look, the kosher sex approach to human sexuality is about passion and intimacy. And the question is, how do you create an intimate experience between husband and wife that is lasting and that is connecting? Well, lingerie is a part of it. Judaism has always recognized special attire that is specifically for intimate moments in marriage. In fact, even in the halacha, we speak about this. When even in the ksuba, in the Jewish marriage contract, where we speak about the kind of garments that a husband buys for his wife, part of that is intimate garments like lingerie, and it kind of speaks to how men have been more visually attracted than women. Although I'm kind of challenging Khan that I see that changing a bit, because women focus a great deal on a man's looks these days, and maybe they always did. Maybe we were just fooling ourselves with false gender stereotypes, and women were always visually attracted. But I also want to kind of understand, what would kosher lingerie look like? Because the whole idea of revelation amidst concealment, revealing aspects of the body while also preserving modesty, in order to preserve two of the twin ingredients of kosher erotic attraction, which is unavailability. You know, a naked body is too available. Lingerie kind of makes a body more mysterious, unavailability. And the other is this the erotic obstacle, the need to overcome more impediments. There should be articles of clothing, more garments that need to be removed in order for husband and wife to consummate their mutual lust, their mutual attraction, their mutual desire. And that's one of the reasons that we have lingerie. So there is this idea of kosher lingerie, of intimate garments that still conceal. It's a fascinating concept that really requires a bit more elucidation. In the meantime, I thank you all very much for joining us. You know, sometimes when I speak about kosher sex ideas, and this is late night kosher sex with Rabbi Shmuley, often when and Chana is the one who tries to take some of these ideas and translate them into the company she's running, into real products for people. But very often when I speak about the concepts behind kosher sex, we're still trying to figure so much out about human relationships and how to make marriages more attractive and more inviting. But my main purpose is not always to answer every question or to solve every riddle. Human sexuality is an infinite mystery that we will be unwrapping for all time. It's rather to bring Judaism and the Torah's views of human sexuality to bear on these great questions of attraction between husband and wife, sexual interaction between man and woman, etc. So I'd love to see your comments. God bless you all. Have a good night.